Hempstead public hearing on the assessment roll of the Greater Atlantic Beach Reclamation District for fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2023, and the preliminary budget of the town of Hempstead for fiscal year commencing January 1, 2023. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Clavin.
Here.
Councilman Creedy.
Here.
Councilman D'Esposito.
I'm here.
Councilman Dunn. Deputy Supervisor Gooseby. Here. Councilwoman Miller.
Here.
Woman, yeah, I said that. Councilman Mascarella.
Councilman Green, I'm going to ask you to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a reminder from past years, today's public hearing begins at 2:30 and will be continued to 7 p.m. once everyone who wishes to speak in the afternoon finish their remarks. Because the public hearings will be continued to 7 p.m., participants who speak at the 2:30 will not be able to speak again at 7 p.m. Each participant will be given one chance to speak for up to 3 minutes in accordance with the town board rules. Madam Clerk or Supervisor, may you please call the public hearing on the assessment roll for the Greater Atlantic Beach Water Reclamation District for fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2023.
We have the proposed assessment roll of the Greater Atlantic Beach, Water Reclamation District for fiscal year
Not just me.
commencing January 1st, 2023.
All right, first up, does any member of the board wish to be heard in this matter? Okay, I do not have any slips on this item. Does anybody who did not sign in wish to be heard on item number 1 on the calendar? All right, if not, may I please have a motion?
I move to continue this public hearing to 7 p.m. this evening.
Second.
Supervisor Clavin.
Aye.
Councilman Creedy.
Aye.
Councilman D'Esposito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn. Deputy Supervisor Gooseby.
Aye.
Councilwoman Miller.
Aye.
Councilman Mascarella.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
We have the preliminary budget of the town of Hempstead for fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2023.
Okay, first up, does any member of the board wish to be heard on the preliminary budget? Okay, I have a couple of slips for people who wish to be heard. First, we'll start off with Felix Bercacci. Good afternoon, Mr. Bercacci. If you give your name and address to the record, thank you.
Felix Bercacci, Franklin Square. Prior to the release of the Moody's report on September 1st, how much in reserves did you tell Moody's that the town was going to use?
Mr. Bercacci, you got a question on the budget?
That is the budget.
No, your question was directed on the budget, not for a report from a media source. So do you have a question on the budget itself?
Yeah. Okay, what was the actual amount of reserve funds used by the town in 2021?
Well, this is the 2023 budget, so we're talking about the 2023 budget right now, preliminary budget.
So it's related. Franklin Square Park District in 2022 was 3.86 million. In 2023 it's 4.556 million. Are my taxes for that line item going to be going up?
John, if you live in that, do you live in that district?
Yes, I do.
Okay, John, is his taxes going up?
No.
Oh, the question, he just answered the question. No, they will not.
Why isn't it, you're increasing it over 10%, so why?
What we've actually tried to do as a board is actually, invest in our parks, and we found that we wanted to make this additional investment. As you know, just by you, I believe we redid the softball fields over there. Yeah, the turf over there. We're investing in our parks. We think it's a really big, important thing, and that's why it's gone up, because we're investing money back into our parks for the community. That's what residents want. The Cherry Valley was done. The park over on Nassau Boulevard, Garden City South. I'm committed to investing in the parks because everybody loves parks, and that's a key part of suburbia.
Had nothing to do with my question. I just was wondering, since the budget is going up, why aren't the taxes going up? But,
well, sometimes it doesn't have to be a correlation between them.
Okay. The Moody's report reported the town's fund balance increased from 104 million in 2019 to 160 million in 2020. What were the major factors that contributed to the increase?
Again, that has nothing to do. That was when we got the AAA bond rating, which I appreciate you taking a lot of pride in. That has nothing to do with this budget. If you have any questions in relation to this preliminary budget?
How much federal CARES funds remains unspent?
But again, that has nothing to do with the preliminary budget, Mr. McConkey.
It does, but okay, you say you're going to be using $53 million in reserves for next year. Why are you using so much, $53 million in reserves? That means a shortfall of more than 10%.
Yeah.
Yes, we as all other governments are being buffeted with a reduction of mortgage tax revenue. From its high to next year, it's probably going to be down by $20 million. We're also not certain about sales tax, and the federal funding it expired in 2022, and that's a factor. That's a fact. So the combination of all those things, plus increases, some operating expenses, not a lot, but some, caused a $50 million drawdown.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, Moody's was told at the meetings, and they were informed of it. They were well aware of it, and
I appreciate that, and like I said, the entity that gave us the AAA bond rating was advised of it, but let's be very honest and say it's a very difficult time in America. Everyone's costs have gone up. I know when I do my grocery shopping, I know my costs have gone up. When I fill my tank of gas up, my costs have gone up. Costs have gone up for everything, and it's a government's responsibility to try and hold the line at minimum for the residents. And we've been able to do that this year. And if by using reserves and still maintaining a AAA bond rating, then frankly, I think we're doing it the right way.
Yeah, the price that went up, yes, this year, but don't forget the last 2 years, the federal government has given people who couples that earn $150,000 or less, $5,800 in.
I hate to break this to you,
Yeah.
but that's an unrealistic amount of money the federal government gives to the cost of living for people living in the tri-state area. I saw it with discounts that were given to seniors from the New York State. You know what, about tax breaks, it's unrealistic. You know what, the families, husbands and wives are both working 2 jobs to survive. And I think this is a good, solid plan we put together. And as I said, Moody's, agreed by giving us that AAA bond rating.
But Moody's gave the AAA bond rating on questions you won't answer.
No, Mr. Country, actually, if you didn't hear before, and I know, seriously, Mr. Mascarino said, he told them what we were doing. They knew about how we were doing. But I'm saying
I asked questions.
I know, but you can't make up your own facts. You can't say that we didn't say. He did. He actually said that not 2 minutes ago.
I got the Moody's report right here. I got the Moody's report, and it talks about 2020, and you won't answer questions regarding 2020.
We're not talking about
what they're bragging about, you won't talk about. So that's there's the problem, right? 'Cause I'm quoting the Moody's report, the numbers that I just quoted. I said the Moody's report said this. That had to do with what you're talking about in 2023. And meanwhile, you don't want to answer questions regarding things you want to talk about. You want to parse which part of the Moody's report you want to talk about, but not the whole thing.
Well, Mr. Procacci, you don't think that that Moody's gave us that bond upgrade without having those questions answered?
I
just
asked
explained
him
it?
a question about the Moody's report, and he won't answer the question about the Moody's report. He wants
I think the questions were answered to Moody's, which is why they gave us the upgrade.
But you won't answer the question ask the questions to Moody's. You gave them the data. I foiled the data. I was promised the data October 31st. I foiled it back on September 6th. I wanted to have the data before this meeting, but I didn't get that. And I foiled the same thing you gave to Moody's. I wanted to see the data for myself. You didn't give it to me because it's going to take longer to give to me than it did to give to Moody's for some reason. And then I want to ask questions about this budget, and you talk about Moody's here, and I want to ask questions about Moody's, and you don't want to answer them. You want to talk about what you want to talk about. And that's a problem. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Country. Always good seeing you.
Before, Supervisor,
Yeah.
let the record reflect that Councilman Dunn and Muscarella have been here for the entirety of the preliminary budget.
Next up, I have this from Ms. Meredith. Good afternoon. If you can name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. Mita J. Meredith, Town and Hempstead resident. I kind of echo Mr. Procacci's sentiments, and I'd like to know, since I was just handed this today, I'm just concerned that we don't put percentages as far as increase or changes over time with regard to the budget? Because this, again, is hard for people to get a grasp on, and you only give them 3 minutes, and then you say that they can't speak again later this afternoon if there's information brought to the table that's beneficial to the community. So, what is the change or the increase ideally for veteran services in this budget for the upcoming year?
The expenses are basically staying the same from year over year.
Okay, is that because this requested they don't need anything else, or the fact that our veterans are in need of additional services, particularly with
We
the...
have not received any request for additional funding.
I see. Okay, that's a problem, considering now that the U.S. Senate has passed a PACT bill, and we already have scammers that are jeopardizing the resources for our veterans and their families, that the township is not, as it's always trying to be progressive, addressing that by providing additional resources to help our veterans to get these new benefits that they or their families or the widows and widowers can benefit from. So I take that as a particular offense with the number of veterans that we have in this area. Parks, the Parks Department, what is the change or the increase as it pertains to Baldwin Parks in particular? And before anybody tells me about, you know, the scape and seascape and all that kind of stuff, again, I take it as an affront that I was told in this forum when we were addressing where Baldwin residents could go, and they said, well, you can catch a bus to get to Merrick or Belmore, you know, for services. We had 4 months of intensive heat, and there was funding that could set up possibly cooling stations at Cozeneck Park. Yes, I was told in this building about the events that were taking place at the Merrick Park that were not available at Cozeneck Park, which is a town park. And I was told, I don't necessarily need to say the name, but you can check the record, that, well, the residents can take a bus to Merrick or Belmore and take advantage of those resources. So I want to know, what is being added to the Parks Department facility in Baldwin to expand on the needs for those residents in that area? We had the same bathroom, I think Beaver Cleaver could have used that bathroom, as well as that Henry Street facility that Roosevelt residents needed some. Is there anything that's going to be happening with the property in Roosevelt and what's the increase in Baldwin?
But you're talking, as far as the Baldwin Park, that's a general fund park. It is administered by the Parks Department. And to my understanding, anything that's needed there is provided. And then it's paid for via the general fund tax.
John, also behind you, I see the Deputy Commissioner of Parks. Again, you can identify yourself.
Hey, good afternoon, Supervisor, members of the town board. I'm not sure
You gotta
about...
tell your name first.
Copy.
Title.
Ms. Maraday, are you asking about capital improvements or
Yes.
anything specific to the operating budget?
Capital improvements.
I don't believe that would be in this particular budget.
Okay.
Well, what particular budget would it be in?
I would want to check with the controller, but I believe the capital budget will be on the next town board.
And would residents be advised of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing was called last meeting.
Okay, is it possible, maybe not for this budget, but for future budgets, to have an actual breakdown of percentage of change with regard to previous years, so residents have an idea of exactly how their funding is being spent?
Not possible.
We can take it under advisement, any recommendation, thank you.
Okay. All right, and lastly, I do hope that we are increasing the resources as it pertains to medical support services and transport, you know, for our seniors, because again, we need to have all of you sitting there to reach out to the public and have conversations about these budgets as opposed to these meetings, and you can only speak one time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Meredith. I don't have any other slips. Was anybody who has not been heard that wishes to be heard? Okay. If not, then please have a motion.
Supervisor, I move to continue the hearing to 7 p.m. this evening.
Does anybody want to second that?
I'll second.
Okay.
Supervisor Clayton.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilman Esposito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Deputy Supervisor Gooseby.
Aye.
Councilwoman Miller.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella.
Okay, thank you all. See you all this evening at 7 p.m. sharp. Thank you. Take care. The fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2023, and the preliminary budget of the town of Hempstead for the fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2023, which began earlier today at 2:30. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll again?
Supervisor Clayton.
I am still here.
Councilman Carini.
Yeah.
Councilman Esposito.
Still here as well.
Councilman Dunn.
Here.
Deputy Supervisor Guzman. Councilwoman Miller.
Here.
Councilman Muscarella.
Present.
Receiver of taxes Janine E. Driscoll.
You know what, even though we did it this afternoon, I'm going to ask our receiver of taxes to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right hand over your heart, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Madam Receiver. Good job. Today's public hearing began at 2:30 and is continued to the 7 p.m. As I stated earlier this afternoon, because the public hearings were continued to 7 p.m., participants who spoke at 2:30 p.m. will not be able to speak again at 7 p.m. Every participant who chooses to speak will be given one chance to speak for up to 3 minutes in accordance with the town board rules. Madam Clerk, please recall the first public hearing.
We have the proposed assessment roll of the Greater Atlantic Beach Water Reclamation District.
Okay.
Fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2023.
Okay, I have one speaker for this first hearing, and that's Ms. Merritt. Name and address, please. Thank you.
Good evening, Media J. Maraday, and I too am back. And in accordance with the rules, I will be speaking about the first issue, since I did speak about the budget, but still I want it on the record. And I think residents should have as many opportunities as possible because of the limited access that they actually have to the budget to be able to speak on it and ask questions. But as it pertains to the Greater Atlantic Beach Reclamation Water District, my question starts out with what is the difference between last year, the proposed rolls, and this year, and why is this particular item separate from all the other assessment roll documents?
Yes, this particular tax is not based upon assessed valuation. It's based upon frontage of properties, which is why it's handled differently.
And is this the only area that is assessed by frontage?
Yes.
Like Long Beach and nothing like that?
Nothing else.
Okay. All right, so what's the difference between last year and this year?
Okay, last year's budget, this is the $1,939,321. This year's budget is $1,942,199.62. The difference is $2,878.62, a 0.15% increase.
Okay, and where's that money going, the $2,000?
It goes to the district, the sewer district.
Okay, so that would be incorporated into the sewer district?
Right.
Okay, so that's not like general fund?
Has nothing to do with the town of Hempstead.
Okay. Okay. All right, good, because that kind of ties into my other question, because when we're talking about proposed rolls, that does not involve any type of grievances as anyone that would be grieving their homes for their taxes. This is a separate scenario?
Yes, it is. It's not a normal assessment process, and it doesn't have the normal assessment process, complaints, or not necessarily complaints, but process to grieve the assessment. This has nothing to do with that process.
Okay. And as far as the sewer districts, and how many sewer districts are there in the township of Hempstead?
Only one.
Okay. So the sewer district funding is one fund. Okay. And that is incorporated under what? Is that also incorporated under the general budget, the overall budget?
No, it's a commissioner-operated district. It's a regular commissioner-operated district, like other commissioner-operated districts.
Okay. All right. So in other words, that wouldn't go into the general fund and being earmarked as far as restricted
It has
funds?
nothing to do with town's budget.
So to actually do the frontage in the assessment process, who handles that? Who does that work for that?
I'm not sure who handles that. Maybe somebody, is there a
Well,
representative?
they do the assessment, I think it'd be Nassau County, would it not?
I'm the attorney for the district, includes the CBO. I didn't hear the question.
Ms. Meredith, what was your question again? This
In
is
terms of the
council-
determination, as far as the frontage cost or charges or fees, how are you doing, sir? It's always good to see you.
The answer is, this assessment roll is based totally and solely on the figures and amounts that we receive from the county of Nassau.
Okay, so that comes out of Nassau County's assessor's office.
This is a separate and separate district. Has nothing to do with the town of Hempstead.
Counselor,
Other than the fact that the law indicates that the town board of the town of Hempstead has to approve this assessment roll.
Okay.
So basically, but the assessment roll itself comes from the Nassau County Department of Assessment.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, but because of the law, it has to be administered through the town of Hempstead. Right. So there's no fiscal responsibility on the part of the town
It
regardless.
needs to be approved. That's
Needs to be approved, okay. So there's no fiscal responsibility, there's no cost from the town with regard to this.
None whatsoever.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, I don't have any other slips on this particular item. Is anybody who did not sign in that did not want to be heard? Okay, if not, please have a motion.
I move the assessment roll for the Greater Atlantic Beach Water Reclamation District for the fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2023 be adopted.
second.
Supervisor Clayton.
Aye.
Councilman Carini.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Padrón.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Deputy Supervisor Gooseby.
Aye.
Councilwoman Miller.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the second public hearing.
We have the preliminary budget of the town of Hempstead for fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2023.
Okay, I do not have any slips on this. Is anybody who did not speak earlier wishes to be heard on this budget? If not, may I please have a motion?
Supervisor, I move to adopt the preliminary budget as the annual budget of the town of Hempstead for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2023.
Supervisor Clayton.
Aye.
Councilman Carini.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Padrón.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Deputy Supervisor Gooseby. Councilwoman Miller.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella.
Aye. Before I call it, I do want to say thank you to John Masparino and everybody in the Controller's office. Thank you for working with the town board and producing this tax-free budget. It's a real testament to the hard work of all the men and women in every department of the town, all the special districts that work with us, but John, in particular to you, I want to say thank you very much. It's a real rarity to have a tax freeze with a AAA bond rating. You've been a long-standing friend, and frankly, I think you're the best controller in the tri-state area, so thank you very much for your work.
Thank you, Mr. National. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second motion.
Supervisor Clayton.
Aye.
Councilman Carini.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Padrón.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Deputy Supervisor Gooseby. Councilwoman Miller.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella.
Aye. Well, thank you all very much, and have a safe evening home.